Imagine the first child of the future never coming from a delivery room. Instead, life begins here, behind glass, inside a machine. And once that happens, birth stops being only a human moment. It becomes something someone can design, monitor, and control. That sounds extreme, but this future doesn't need one impossible invention. It only needs real technologies to keep moving toward each other. Cloning is real. Scientists have already cloned animals, so this doesn't start with fantasy, it starts with science. And that's the part most people miss. The danger isn't that a human clone has been confirmed, it's that the pieces of that future are already on the table. It all started with a sheep. Dolly wasn't some movie plot. She was real proof that an adult cell could help create an entire living animal. After that, cloning stopped sounding impossible. Not easy, not safe, not ready for humans, but no longer impossible. Then the line moved closer. Researchers successfully cloned macaques, actual primates, using the same core technique that produced Dolly. That doesn't mean humans are next, but it does mean one of those old comfort walls got thinner than most people wanted to admit. And cloning is only one piece. Artificial womb technology is already serious enough that regulators have started asking how human studies could even begin. In animal research, premature lambs have been supported outside the womb for weeks, not from the first cell to birth, but far enough to make the whole idea feel real. So the question changes. What happens when copying life, editing life, and growing life outside the body all start heading toward the same room? But cloning isn't some copy machine for bodies. It doesn't just print out a person. What it actually copies is the instruction set, the biological code that tells a body how to start building itself. And even then, it's not instant. The whole process is slow, fragile, and full of failure points most people never hear about. A clone wouldn't be the same person living the same life. Similar DNA doesn't mean the same memories, the same choices, or the same sense of self. But that raises a harder question. If those instructions can be copied, what's actually stopping someone from trying it with humans? The first big mistake is waiting for the first lab-born human to show up. By then, the real race has already begun. Powerful technology gets fought over long before it is finished. The moment the pieces start looking useful, big money, governments, and security agencies move in. And here, the pieces are already easy to see. Copy the instructions, edit the code, support life outside the body, monitor every step. Put those pieces together, and birth stops feeling like something that simply happens. It starts looking like a system someone can build, control, and own. So the real question is not whether the first one is already here. The real question is, who is getting ready for the day it is? Once those pieces connect, the conversation changes. It stops being about whether this is possible. It starts being about who moves first. The pieces are already sitting in separate places, and the distance between them is shrinking faster than most people realize. Genome editing is already real enough that regulators are writing safety rules around it. Rules don't show up when nothing is moving. And once a process can be monitored, it can be measured. Once it can be measured, someone will always try to improve it. This is exactly where birth starts to change shape. Not all at once, step by step, room by room, approval by approval. Then the gates appear. Who gets access? Who pays? Who keeps the records? Who decides yes or no? The more organized the system gets, the less it feels like a private beginning. It starts feeling like a pipeline. And once birth becomes a pipeline, the people who control it control something much bigger than technology. They control access to the beginning of human life. Once people can control the pipeline, the next question follows immediately. What else can we choose? This is exactly where genome editing becomes much harder to contain. Some of those changes wouldn't stop with one child. They could move through generations. At first, the reason sounds almost impossible to challenge. Prevent disease, lower the risk, give a child the strongest possible start. But the lest does not have to stop there. Health turns into performance. Performance turns into advantage. And if advantage comes with a price tag, the future won't arrive for everyone the same way. It will arrive first and best for the people who can pay. That's how inequality cuts deeper than money ever could. It reaches into the body before a child even takes their first breath. And once society starts ranking human traits before life has even begun, a child stops being treated like an unknown person. They become a profile, a risk, a projected outcome. That is the next real danger. Before that child can even speak, their origin may already be used to define everything that follows. The child hasn't said a single word yet, but there's already a file quietly moving through the building. From the clinic desk to a locked room, then to another office, then to someone who's never even met the child, but can still help shape their future. And the questions don't wait. Who paid? Who approved it? Who owns the records? Years later, that person might walk into a school, a clinic, or a job interview, and the person across the desk may already know exactly where they came from. They might look completely ordinary. That's what makes it even worse. The difference isn't on their face. It's locked away in a file they don't control. And once that file becomes useful, it won't stay in one place. Clinics will want it. Insurers may want it. Governments may want to sort people by it. That's where the next part gets a lot darker. Because companies, governments, and even armies don't look at a system like this and just see a child. They see power. The first version would probably look quiet and controlled. A private clinic, a locked file, access limited to the people who can afford it. Then governments would start asking very different questions. Can this help with population problems? Can it reduce future risks? Can it create the kind of citizens they want? And armies would ask the question people avoid saying out loud. Can a person be shaped for extreme pressure before they ever get to choose their own life? That is the turning point. Companies see a product, governments see a tool, military programs see performance. And suddenly, the real danger is not a baby growing in a lab. It is a human life designed around someone else's purpose, long before that person ever gets a choice. That's what makes this future so dangerous. Not one machine, not one lab. It's an entire system built to decide what a human life is allowed to become. Maybe the real question isn't whether humans can be made this way. The darker question is who they're being made for.